sequencing, and it was asymptomatic. This is the first documented case of reinfection that I'm aware of out of more than 23 million COVID-19 cases. How should we interpret this finding, and what are the implications for herd immunity and for vaccination? Thanks.
Thanks very much for the question. I just got a hold of the press release that was provided by Hong Kong New, so I had a quick look at that. I think what we need to, from the very beginning, we've been talking about when people are infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and that our expectation is that people who are infected with this virus develop an immune response. What we are learning about infection is that people do develop an immune response, and what is not completely clear yet is for how long, how strong that immune response is, and for how long that immune response lasts. There's very good data coming out from research studies, which are being conducted all over the world, that are looking at this immune response for people who have had a mild infection, people who have had asymptomatic infection, people who have had severe infection. And we're seeing that they do develop an immune response, that most people do. And so what we understand from the press release is that this may be an example of reinfection. And if you remember last week I was asked about this, and I had said that in cases like this it would be good if sequencing could be done. And in a place like Hong Kong, where they have very strong facilities, they can do that, and in fact they have done. I understand from the press release that there's 24 nucleotide difference between the first virus and the second virus. What I think is really important is that we put this into context. As you outlined in the question yourself, there's been more than 24 million cases reported to date, and we need to look at something like this on a population level. And so it's very important that we document this, and that in countries that can do this, if sequencing can be done, that would be very, very helpful. But we need to not jump to any conclusions. To say even if this is the first documented case of reinfection, it is possible, of course, because with our experience with other human coronaviruses, and the MERS coronavirus and the SARS-CoV-1 coronavirus, we know that people have an antibody response for some time, but it may wane. What we know specifically about immune response for SARS-CoV-2 is that there are a number of studies underway following the same individuals over time. These are called longitudinal studies, which follow the same individual at monthly time periods or every few months. Remember, we're 8 months into this pandemic, and so these studies are still continuing. From the longitudinal studies that are underway, not all of them are published yet, we do see a strong antibody response that stays at that same level. There are some cross-sectional surveys that have been recently published that look at the same population over time, not the same individuals, but the same group of people from the same population. And it was some suggestion that there may be a slight decline or waning in immunity. Again, we really need these studies to be conducted so that we really understand what this immune response looks like. But I don't want people to be afraid. We need to ensure that people understand that when they are infected, even if they have a mild infection, that they do develop an immune response. In this particular case, it's very important that we look, and I haven't read the study, so I don't have the answer to this yet, to see if this individual developed a neutralizing antibody response, which is what will protect from reinfection. So still a lot of work underway, really good studies that are underway, but it's great to see documentation and these good studies and these being shared.
Thank you very much, Dr. Van Kerkhove. For the next question, we're going to Malta, to Monique in the Malta newsroom. Monique, could you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Good afternoon. Hi, it's Monique. My question is, what is the World Health Organization's view if a vaccine is found? Would it be mandatory for everyone?
Thank you very much for the question about vaccines and their use going forward. The question was specifically whether or not there would be a requirement for vaccination. And obviously, immunization policy and requirements are in the national domain, and so those decisions would be made at the national level. But clearly, what we're looking for here is the greatest possible acceptance of a vaccine and that vaccine-seeking behavior. So our work will really emphasize ensuring people understand the benefits of the vaccines, the safety of vaccines, the quality of vaccines, and that we can encourage as much as possible the seeking of vaccines rather than mandatory requirements.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aylward. Now we're going to move to India, to Avijit in AMN News. Avijit, can you unmute yourself and please ask your question?
Thank you for taking my question. We just had the Russian vaccine announced, and there's been a lot of enthusiasm amongst people all over. So how effective is the vaccine, and what is WHO's comment on that?
Do you want me to take that?
Dr. Sumia?
Margaret?
Yes, please go ahead.